Hello everyone and welcome to another drawing time of INKroverts. Today we're talking about the 5 ways to draw faster for digital art. Now, a bit of forewarning here. If you're looking to instantly improve your art quality and your skills and to produce many artwork in a span of short time, then this is not the right video for you. What I'm going to talk about here is a few techniques that can help us save time and avoid some unnecessary troubles along the drawing process, because there are a lot of honest mistakes that I've made when I was drawing digital art, and they could be easily avoided by using a few techniques so that I didn't have to spend a lot of time adjusting and redrawing stuff. And so, without further ado, let's begin the video. Okay, let's start with the first technique, which is to draft on paper. And we, as digital artists, we love to do everything sketching, coloring, or on the computer. And because it's very convenient, we sit in front of the computer, why would we go back to the paper and then scan the sketches or take photos of sketches and transfer it back to the computer, right? It sounds very time consuming compared to doing everything on the computer. Well, the thing is, having just the paper and a pencil on the desk for you to draw is much less distractible than the computer, because when you open up the drawing software, I don't know if it's Sai or Photoshop, there are a lot of tools for you to choose from, a lot of different brushes for you to choose, different colors, and then there is the browsing engine. Sometimes you would like to click onto YouTube to play your favorite music while you're drawing, and when you click on a video and you click on another, and being distracted not only makes you spend more time in the drafting process, but also you might be less creative when there are so many things going on around you and your mind is constantly switching from one thing to another. So my suggestion is to put everything on the side, turn off the computer, and then just use a paper and pencil to draft your artwork. And when you perhaps are not satisfied with the draft or the sketches, you can just start to draw another thumbnail on another blank area on the paper, or maybe use another paper, and so you don't even have to press Ctrl Z. And it's a good thing, because drafting is about making all the mistakes in the first stage and to establish the final composition of your artwork. And personally, I really like the texture of pencils on paper. It is not as clean as the default brushes in Photoshop, but it still creates a sort of sketchy feeling to your draft, and I kind of like it. And speaking of drafting on paper, the same technique is actually used by many writers. You know, nowadays we have computer, and writers will usually type their stories on Microsoft Word or somewhere else. They don't have to carve out every letters on the paper, but still many writers like to, during their planning stage, take out their notebooks or lined paper to draft their work, to write diagrams of their story structures or whatever. And they do that because writing on paper actually makes their mind more clear and more deliberate. You know, they are less likely to focus on the insignificant details and basically just focus on the planning. And the same thing goes for drawing artwork, in my opinion. The second point about speeding up a digital drawing process is to make use of negative space. Negative space are basically spaces on the canvas that are not occupied by visual elements. Basically, they are blank, empty spaces. I made the mistake when I was very little about drawing is that I really don't like seeing blank spaces on the paper. I thought that it was a waste of paper, and so I would fill in whatever I could think of to fill in the spaces so that the whole paper is full of stuff. For example, I would draw a cat in the middle of a paper, and then there was grass on the ground the kitty was standing on, and then there is cloud and the sun. Basically, the art teacher I had said that this drawing is pretty fine, it's good enough. It's good enough to stop. It is a completed artwork. But I wasn't satisfied. I saw that the kitty was standing alone on the grass in a field, and what I did is to add 10 or perhaps more butterflies flying around the kitty so that they fill up all the spaces of the paper. And after that, my art teacher was mortified, like, why did you do that? It looked fine at the beginning. Why did you have to ruin it? And the reason was because that I didn't like empty spaces. Many of us digital artists love to fill the canvas full of beautiful things, and that is great. That is all well and good. However, in terms of composition, in terms of planning the composition of your artwork, sometimes empty spaces are useful as well. We don't have to fill in every single empty space with visual elements, with characters and accessories and decorations. Empty spaces sometimes would bring out the focus of an artwork. I'm not sure how to explain it with words. I will pull up an artwork by, I'm not sure if I can do that, but here it is. This is an artwork by Ross Tran. He's a very famous digital artist on the internet, and as you can see, this whole artwork is very sublime, and the characters and perhaps the other trees and stuff are just filling the edge of the canvas, and in the middle it looks very empty. But even though it is empty, it doesn't look unfinished. On the other hand, it actually makes the artwork look more sublime and impactful. That's how I feel when I look at this artwork. And so, well-applied negative space can help us establish the mood of the artwork. And in terms of saving time, we don't have to spend so much effort, unnecessary effort, like decorating a corner of the canvas that no one pays attention to. Ultimately, it really depends on how you plan the composition. If you first planned the composition and you decided there is going to be negative space, then let there be negative space. The third point is to set a deadline for yourself. The deadline serves as a firm reminder about when you should complete the artwork. This has to be very reasonable. You don't want to force yourself to churn out something more than you can handle, but having a reasonable deadline helps you avoid procrastination, because, well, first off, you mark the deadline on your calendar, and when you see that the deadline is approaching, it is close, and then our brain will function like having any other deadline. For example, a deadline for a project or homework. Even though you don't feel like drawing just yet, even when you don't feel like you have any good ideas, your brain will propel you to at least work something, at least sit in front of the canvas to draw a few lines, and then from there you'll build momentum to keep on drawing and drawing. And I think you will be surprised, because I was surprised at how much I can accomplish with just a little less procrastination each day. I've Fun fact, I've downloaded an app that monitors how many hours, how many minutes I've spent on the phone, and it was more than I imagined. And then I set the timer so that it blocks the apps, the social media apps on my phone at certain times. It limits my time to use the phone in general. Those times, other than scrolling through the internet, I would actually sit in front of the computer to draw. And surprisingly, I wasn't as in a hurry as I was before, and I was able to finish my artwork much earlier than the deadline, and I was very happy about that. So I suggest that you try it out as well. The fourth advice is to use a thick brush first. This one actually depends on the style of your art. Some digital artists like to do a clean line work first, and so they can't use a really thick brush for that. But they can still use it in the beginning stage. So the method is this. Basically, you establish all the big shapes in the painting. Use a really thick brush to mark down the big shadows or big areas in a color, and then mark another big area with another color. It's basically to establish the big shapes, all the big shapes first, instead of dwelling in the details immediately. I've made this mistake a few years ago. I'd like to draw the details for the character's face. I would spend a lot of time drawing the eyes and the hands and so on, and after that, when I zoomed back out to see the image, because I haven't established all the big shapes in a painting, the zoomed out look would look very weird because the anatomy is wrong, the face proportion is wrong, and at the end I have to adjust things. Sometimes I have to draw it all over again, and it's killing my time, and I don't want other artists to make the same mistake. So I would suggest to use a thick brush first, even though that you are going to draw the line work afterwards. You can delete the thick brush later, but these thick brush strokes serve as markers for you to draw the details on. It's kind of the same with sketches, but thick brush also includes color, so that you not only the silhouette of the characters are marked down, you also know where the big shadows and big light parts are. Okay, onward to the fifth advice, which is to use reference. I think I've talked about reference a lot in my previous videos. Even a lot of professional digital artists use reference because it is a really great learning opportunity when you are drawing stuff you're not familiar with. Because honestly, there are a lot of things in this world that we can draw, and there are a lot of things in this world that we're not familiar enough to draw without looking at them. Some people are good at drawing portraits, but not cars, and some people are really good at drawing environment, but they aren't familiar with human anatomy, and so reference is there to guide artists, and you don't have to feel guilty about copying, quote unquote, because reference is not copying. You are not tracing the entire reference image. You don't have to feel embarrassed about using reference in the first place. On the contrary, it helps you avoid mistakes that you're going to make, and it saves your time. Sometimes I would use reference to draw the metal texture. This is my example. If I don't use a reference and I just draw what metal looks like in my head, obviously I'm going to get it wrong, and I'm not going to learn from my experience because I have no idea what the metal texture is like on painting. Even if I try it again and again, I'm going to waste my time while not knowing exactly what to do. And so this is what reference is for. It helps us learn and save time. And yep, this is the fifth advice. I have a feeling that some of my audience in this video click here because you get tired of how long an artwork takes to complete, or that you increasingly grow burned out after spending so long in front of the canvas and still not achieving what you expected, I want to say that think about why you started out painting in the first place. Do you feel happy creating stuff? I think it's very important that you enjoy the process, because that's the whole point of painting in the first place. And of course, painting is exhausting sometimes because it's a creative process. You have to keep thinking what you should do and what you create next, and it can be tiring for your brain if you keep drawing for a long period of time. So it's okay to take a rest, and I really hope you enjoy painting, enjoy the process of doing art, and also I hope that my 5 tips helps you in your pursuit in digital art. So good luck to you, and thank you for watching to the end of this video. I've finished my artwork and you can see it here. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to click like and subscribe, and you can go to INKroverts.com to check out my website, which includes my weekly portfolio update and blog entries. And I'll see you next video. Bye!